Okay, so welcome to this comprehensive explanation of our project that is Campfire Chronicles. I'm Ayush and I have a co-partner Ashmit. We are submitting this project as the submission from the team Coffee Overflow for the Murph coding challenge for the June month. And this is our project, the Campfire Chronicles. It is a Unity based game that implements APIs such as Gemini and Murph text to speech. Basically, it uses multiple scripts and all of them are connected to each other. Let me go through all the scripts one by one. The background music script basically plays the audio that will be playing once the game starts. Chapter transition comes in between all the chapters of the game, and all the text, all the segments that have been generated and divided by the Gemini API. Character creation is for the customization by the user. We have kept the game interactive and not just robust hard-coded stuff. We have given the user choice to create their own character and carve its own story. The character evolution basically contains all the images that needs to be displayed time to time. Enhance settings is for the working of this button, the settings button. It contains various functionalities such as development tools, brightness, sound settings, etc. The game character stores data about the game character that we will be sending to Gemini, and it stores in a string, and then those strings get passed into another text, and that text gets sent to Gemini as a prompt, and the response received from that prompt is then stored into a text file. We divide all the responses into segments as we have mentioned in the prompt, and then those segments get played one by one in the screen along with parsement of the segments into murf API and receiving the segments in base 64 encoded format. Then decoding of all those base 64 formats is done, and the mp4 files are then played in synchronization with all the text that is being generated on the screen. So instead of using any complicated database system, we have used Google Sheets. We haven't used any fancy stuff. It's a simple Google Sheets integration. It takes two API keys, that is the Gemini API key and the Murf API key. We can change it at any time if the key expires. So that gives a lot of flexibility to us. Then the narrator entry is basically a small a script that basically moves this component from here to here when the game begins. And pause manager basically works for the pause component. Pixelated loading comes when we are sending data into the APIs and receiving the data. It's basically sort of an animation to show how the thing is working, and that's how. So the slide component basically moves this component up and this component down and then starts the game. The story display manager synchronizes the text printing and the audio playing one to one. The story generator is the main component of the story. It is a comprehensive 1000+ line code that integrates all the APIs, makes all the prompt calls, and everything basically is integrated in this code. So the UI fantasy animation is basically the script that plays 2 or 3 sprites in consecutive orders in order to create an animation effect in the background. Unskippable video is basically a portion where we have the video that cannot be skipped, and the voice audio manager basically manages all the volume controls of the game. So now I'll be moving to the gameplay of the game. Let me just mute myself for better stuff.
Let me tell you a story I've watched unfold more times than I care to count. It always begins the same, a city on the edge of silence, lanterns dim. The mist creeps in. People vanish, swallowed by shadows they do not see coming, and in the center of it all. A child with a light they do not understand. I used to think I was only a witness to this tale, that my voice was nothing more than wind against the walls of time. But not this time. I have seen this story happen before. Nonetheless, here we are again at another beginning. Last ember of the lantern, what is your name? This time I remember too much, and he burns too bright to forget. His name is Eliafen, and whether he knows it or not, he is the last ember before the dark. The story bends toward him now like flame drawn to breath, uncertain, fragile, unstoppable. He does not yet know the weight of his name, nor how many shadows it must carry. I have watched this story unfold countless times. A city dies, a child carries light. The cycle repeats, but this time feels different. This bearer burns brighter than the others who came before. In Verrowind, when darkness comes, someone must carry the fifth lantern. They always have the same face, the same eyes, the same trembling hands that refuse to let go of hope when all seems lost. The first trial comes in childhood, when the world demands courage you don't possess, when shadows whisper that you are too small, too weak, too afraid to matter in the grand design of fate. The child George faced the dying of the first lantern, faced the mist that devours everything, the cold that freezes souls. But instead of running, he whispered to the light, "You're warm." That simple truth, spoken in terror, became the foundation of everything that would follow. A moment of acceptance over that moment of connection, of choosing warmth over cold, light over shadow, hope over despair. That is how a soul begins to grow. How courage is born from the ashes of terror. The second trial comes with prophecy, when you can see all possible futures and they all end in failure. When knowledge becomes a burden heavier. George descended into the clockwell, where time fractures into regrets, where every choice shows its consequences, where he saw himself drowning in visions of defeat, saw every path leading to ruin. The weight of prophecy pressed down like stone. Every vision showed the same ending at dark. But instead of choosing despair, he chose to walk forward anyway. Not because he knew he would succeed. That moment of faith despite doubt, of action despite certainty of failure, that is how a soul learns hope. How the third trial comes with victory, when you win by becoming something cold and unbreakable. When the warrior George climbed the salt spire, where hope becomes mere obligation, where he found himself armored in salt and silence, holding the line but forgetting why it mattered. The lantern's light grew steady but cold, efficient, merciless, a tool of war wrapped. But instead of accepting that hollow victory, he remembered his name, remembered the child. That moment of reclaiming softness in hardness, of finding humanity in efficiency, of choosing love over mere duty. The fourth trial comes with understanding, when you gather all the broken pieces of who you were. George walked to the hollow crown carrying not just light, but all the versions of himself that had. Each failure whispered its lessons. Each scar told its story. Each moment of. Instead of being crushed by their weight, he embraced them, made their failures into wisdom. The fifth lantern blazed not with magic, but with memory. Not with power, but with understanding. That moment of integration, of wholeness from brokenness, of wisdom from folly, that is how. The final trial is not for the bearer, but for the one who has watched it all. When I stepped forward from the shadows, the teacher revealed at last. When George reached the heart of darkness, he was not alone. I was there, as I have always been, the first Eliaphen, the original bearer, the eternal witness. Every story was preparation for this moment, I told him. Every failure taught courage. The cycle finally breaks when someone succeeds where all others failed. Not through perfection, but. The fifth lantern burns not with magic, but with memory. And memory, when finally understood, becomes wisdom. This is the story of how one soul, George, finally learned to be whole. And so the cycle ends, not with a whisper of defeat, but with the promise of dawn. No more lanterns to light. No shadows to chase. Each ember finds its home in a steady hand, guiding warmth through silent streets. No more trembling hearts. No burdens to carry. Forgiveness blooms like sunrise, healing wounds once hidden in mist. No more hollow echoes. No ghosts to bind.
So that was the entire gameplay. So I hope you liked it. I will be waiting for the feedback from your side. Thank you so much for watching.